At this point in time, Ali Mohamed reappears in the narrative. Stavas discovers he had been leaking documents found at Nusair's place. Ali Mohamed, at that time a sergeant in the U.S. Army, clearly made use of the documents to train Islamist groups for combat. Among the trainees was Nusair. He is the key witness Stavas needs to back up his defense. But Ali Mohamed is nowhere to be found.
What his true agenda was unknown to me. I could not find him. Who he was really working for was unknown to me. I couldn't find him despite my best efforts to do so. I wanted to have him as a witness. I sent an investigator to try to find him so I could serve him with a subpoena, which is something that would compel his testimony. And his wife in California hadn't seen him for over a year at that time.
Connections are becoming clearer while multiplying. Ali Mohamed is linked to Ayman al-Zawahiri, who gave him the responsibility of infiltrating the U.S. Army. A few years back, during the Sadat assassination trial, Zawahiri speaks to the International Press Corps. A few yards away stands another key figure of the Egyptian Islamic Jihad group, Sheikh Abdel Rahman, aka the Blind Sheikh.
But as the story goes with Ali Mohamed, he left the Egyptian army in 1984 and contacted the CIA offices in Cairo, offering to be a spy, according to a U.S. official who spoke on the condition of anonymity. He then later moved and enlisted in the U.S. Army in 1986, serving in Special Forces. Not only did he train anti-Soviet Afghan Mujahideen in the early 90s, he trained al-Qaeda volunteers and allegedly Osama bin Laden and Ayman al-Zawahiri. Peter Lance, who has written 3 extensive books on 9/11, one of which particularly documenting the thorough case of Ali Mohamed as a double agent for the CIA, Egyptian Islamic Jihad, who also entered the U.S. working as a translator covertly for al-Zawahiri's first U.S. tour of mosques. While in the U.S., it's said that Ali Mohamed trained al-Said Nosair and Muhammad Abu Halima, which is why after the Meir Kahane assassination, with also all the army training manuals found in Nosair's place, Ali already became a person of interest to U.S. authorities even before 1993, as he doesn't seem to appear anywhere in the narrative of the World Trade Center bombing. But Ali does become linked to the 1998 East Africa Embassy bombings in Kenya and Tanzania, and is charged for it. We will be further re-examining these claims and the profile of Ali Mohamed much later in the film, but for the time being, we move ahead to 1991.
Brooklyn, New York, February 1991. The Blind Sheikh gives speeches denouncing his fellow Egyptian, Mustafa Shalaby, who runs the recruitment center at the Brooklyn Mosque. Both men are allies of bin Laden, but they disagree about how to use all the money that Shalaby raised for the Afghan jihad. Shalaby wants to use it for charity, but the Blind Sheikh wants to use the money for terrorism. His ally, bin Laden, is agitating to strike back at the U.S. in the wake of the Gulf War. Bin Laden is incensed that the U.S. has established bases in his native Saudi Arabia, the Holy Land of Mecca and Medina. The Blind Sheikh's attacks continue. Shalaby has decided that he and his wife should travel home to Egypt. On the day that Shalaby's wife is heading to the airport, Ali Mohamed happens to be in New York and gives her a ride. March 1st, 1991. A neighbor in Shalaby's Coney Island apartment building notices his door open. Inside, Shalaby lies in a pool of blood. He's been stabbed, shot, and strangled. The apartment has been ransacked. Police suspect the Blind Sheikh is behind the murder, but they find no physical evidence that connects anyone to the crime, and there are no arrests. According to terrorism expert Steve Emerson, Ali Mohamed may be the reason why. He allegedly receives an assignment from the Blind Sheikh's terror cell.
After the killing, he was brought in to clean up the apartment and to make sure that nobody who was involved in the killing could ever be found. That murder was never solved to this day.
With Shalaby out of the way, the Blind Sheikh takes over the Al-Khifa Center. He allows this al-Qaeda associate from Texas, a 30-year-old Lebanese-American named Wadih El-Hage, to manage it briefly.
Wadih El-Hage is one of the important and yet underrated figures in this so-called buildup of al-Qaeda. One of the intriguing aspects about El-Hage is that he's one of the very few figures in this whole nexus that is also Lebanese, like suspected 9/11 hijacker Ziad Jarrah. Even though the 1990s has just begun, El-Hage does not necessarily become involved in the World Trade Center bombing or even the attacks of September 11th. Right before Mustafa Shalaby's death, El-Hage was already suspected of being linked to the killing of a liberal imam in Tucson, Dr. Rashid Khalifa, who preached at the Masjid Tucson. While in Arizona, El-Hage was already functioning as bin Laden's financial secretary, having reportedly bought a T-39 aircraft like this one from a businessman in 1993. And had it retrofitted and flown to Sudan. El-Hage also ends up getting involved in the East Africa Embassy bombings and is eventually captured and charged. We will continue discussing him much later in the film as well. But continuing on with 1991,